Man, that's some pretty water. Hey there, voiceover Annie, back here for a cameo. We covered some beautiful waters in the Bahamas, but often without wind. So to do that, we did a good bit of motoring, which means by the time we got to Marsh Harbour, it was time to do a good bit of maintenance on our beloved Westerbeek, which we've named Westie. So I thought I'd make a fun, informative video for you guys, showing you how we change the oil and oil filter on the boat, and replace the fuel filter, and change out the zinc. You ready? First, let's start with engine access. Pretty cool, huh? That's right, we simply pull back the sink, prop it with a pillow, and we have full access to the engine. We also use a pump we picked up in St. Pete. We keep it in this Tupperware bin in the hanging locker that actually sucks the oil out of the engine so that we can change it out. You'll see here the oil filter white. Our previous owner mounted vertically for less spillage when we're changing it out. And this tube brings the oil into the pump. First step to changing the oil is to crank the engine so the oil can warm up. We let it run for about 5 to 10 minutes while we set up our oil change station here in the saloon. You'll see we lay down a lot of sheets and towels. Philip here is connecting the oil pump hose to a separate tube that drains the oil from the bottom of the oil bin in the engine. I usually have to spin it with him to keep it from, touching everything in sight and getting oil all over it. It is definitely a two-person job. Here I'm connecting the hose to the pump, and I'll pump about 10 to 15 times to build up the pressure in the oil pump. Philip will now open the valve on the tube from the engine, and watch carefully. You'll actually see the black oil fill the hose and come down into the pump. And there it goes right there. So now Philip and I can both hear oil coming out of the engine and filling the pump at my feet. It's actually warm too. You can feel on the side the temp of the oil, and you can see the level rising. We usually do this pump and flow process about 2 or 3 times to make sure the whole oil bin in the engine is emptied. This is the final pump that we do, and I'll now disconnect the hose from the pump, trying quickly to hold it upright so no oil drips out, and help Philip as we spin it the same way we put it on, off of the engine. I'll then take the hose from him and wrap it up very quickly in a plastic bag that we keep in a Tupperware bin in the hanging locker. You'll see that red is the valve to open and close that to allow oil to come through. Now while Philip is beginning to take off the old oil filter, I'll start filling the new one. We usually put almost a quart in the new filter, and it takes a while. You have to pour it and wait, and kind of massage it in. And then another approximately 2.5 to 3 in the engine to fill it. You'll see Philip down here has lots of plastic bags he's using to capture that old filter. He's double bagged it now and's got it off. And he'll now clean that area really well to get the oil off, and then check to make sure the gasket from the old oil filter isn't still on there. We've made that mistake before. Now I'm handing him the new filter, and it's full of oil. He's lubing up the gasket with a little swath of oil there, and he'll begin screwing that on the engine. As I mentioned, the vertical mount is awesome. Philip will now tighten it up with the oil wrench, and we will prepare to fill the actual bin on top. You see I have the blue, that's what we call that, our oil funnel there. And checking the dipstick. For us, it usually takes about 2 quarts before any oil even shows. See how it's so low on the bottom there? But it fills rather quickly. Once it starts showing, it shows quickly. So we definitely try not to over oil the engine, kind of shoot low, and then we can always fill later. I also like how the sink access pulled back gives us, really good access to the front of the engine here. I can stand and squat and get pretty much anywhere I need. I've now dumped in, that's about probably 2.5 quarts. And so I want to keep checking it with the dipstick and see what the level is. Philip does his official dismount. You'll see it's still way down on the bottom there. It hasn't even shown yet, so I need to keep adding and checking and adding and checking. All right, here you can start. No, not even yet. Jeez. Adding and checking, adding and checking. All right, here you'll see it. It's probably about a third of the way up to where it needs to be. There we go, starting to show.
All right, let's let that settle for a minute. While we go ahead and check the zinc and put in this.
So now I'm taking off the zinc on our heat exchanger. You can see here it's not too bad actually. That's a little corroded, but really in actually pretty good shape. We've seen it completely missing before. We try to replace this about every 90 days. Philip's putting the plumber's tape on it for a good seal because the heat exchanger is full of water, which always leaks out when you replace this. There's a new one. Nice and clean. This is sacrificial so that it's the first thing to erode as salt water runs through the heat exchanger. So I will pop it in here, and there it is. That's the new one. Again, easy access. And now I'm reaching into the fuel filter. That's the ring that keeps the globe on. Ours is mounted over on the port wall behind the engine. And here is our primary fuel filter. It is definitely time to change it. Got some nice black goodness on the bottom. So I'm going to pop that off and we'll put a new one on. It's really an easy process. The hardest part about this is getting the little O-rings in place. There's two. And I will pop it back down in the globe, make sure the O-rings are in place. And our engine is pretty cool in that it's self-priming. So it'll push the air out itself, see, to bleed the system. We're gonna check the oil one more time before we crank. That's looking really good right there. That's where we want it, right after an oil change. And then I say that and then we put more in. Way to go, Annie. It's right under where we want it. We want to add a little more. And now it's time to crank.
Remember, because we opened it.
Oh God, yeah. We forgot that last time. Yep. I see the air too. It's still filling. Philip says you should wait about 30 seconds for the engine to fully prime itself before turning it over. Takes about 30 seconds, right? Pretty cool, huh? Now, one word about this awesome little pump, which we definitely love that we can carry aboard with us and change our oil anywhere, but we learned one very important lesson about it the very hard way. When dumping it, you can never tip it past 90 degrees. If you do, this is what happens.
Changing transmission fluid.
That's right.
That's how you do it on a boat. This guy's cool. Marine supply guy. This is our little oil changing pump.
Hell of a hunch for that thing.
Yeah. See what's set up here. Very cool. Good. Nice. Oh, great.
Let's get some towels.
This was our old pump that we unknowingly ruined by tipping it upside down while dumping out the oil. This allows oil to fill the pump chamber and then squirt out the handle the next time you use it. It's unusable now.
Let's try to get this first so it doesn't get in the bilge.
Or I can hop up and you hand it to me. You want to do that? And we'll lift the floorboard and
yeah, I just want to get that floorboard stuff before it gets down.
I'm trying to help you. I'll go behind you. Oh yeah, that was all on film.
Now you see why we put down so many sheets and towels when we change the oil on the boat. Hopefully with this video, an oil spill on your boat won't happen to you.
And then you just put her back. Just make sure to slowly let her down. And there she goes. That's it. Engine access on the Niagara. Pretty cool, huh?
Now with Westy ready to go another 50 to 75 hours, we can spend less time doing this and more time doing this.